Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels. We'll get to the JRC here in a moment, but first, a disclaimer, a trigger warning, and why I'm coming to you so early. Alright, disclaimers. For everything that we cover in regards to the JRC, all documentation and source information can be found linked in there in the description box. So should you like to do a deep dive on the subject on your own, you'll definitely be able to do so. Trigger warning. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason. I do use profanity. And when we cover subjects like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center, for example, you are going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present that are 16 and younger and they watch this channel, parental supervision is advised. Alright, now why I'm coming to you so early is because my moronic butt actually forgot to get more grapefruit slices that I shred every morning into my Greek yogurt. So now I'm going to have it delivered and I'm going to have to wait. I'm an impatient sort of person, so I figured to pass the time, I'm going to go ahead and knock out at least one video before I start doing my pre-filming back to back to back a little bit later today. Hence why I am to you a little bit earlier than usual. Which means, other trigger warning. My allergies in the morning suck. If you hear any background noise that has to do with it, I apologize in advance. I'm well aware there is some background noise. I am sorry about that, but I'm not sorry about it. It's morning. I need my traditional soft history type of documentary playing in the background at all times until I completely wake up and have my second dose of caffeine. Alright, so where we left off yesterday, on to page 5 of the public statement in regards to the, once again, proposed ban to the GED device. So, Christina Walton is where we left off. Okay, so this one says here, I am autistic and disabled person, and I want the FDA to ban using electric shock devices on people. I think that disabled people should be allowed to live their lives free for pain, probably from pain. Using the electric shock device on them is not only cruel, but also harms them physically and mentally. I think it's unacceptable to punish disabled people in such a painful way. Well, we appreciate it, Christina Walton, but you should really get involved with getting the medical model's ass on gear and also on board for this, because yeah. Some of these I'm sure we've probably already read, but we're going to read them again because I've slept since then. Alright, so Kara says here, the use of electric shock to treat unsafe behaviors in autistic individuals unethical and inhumane. The use of shock promotes harm to the individuals receiving it. The risks of electrical shock to reduce behavior of concern far outweigh the benefits to the individual. Understatement of the damn century. If my options are I can either continue to hurt myself or have somebody do it for me, guess which one I'm going to choose? Why are you using the very same thing that I do to myself as the means to try and convince myself to not do it? Will never make any form of coherent sense to me. Alright. The use of electric shock to reduce and eliminate unsafe behaviors violates countless items within the ethics code for behavior analysts, including tenets related to compassionate care, doing no harm, patient assent, dignity, and respect. So I remember having read this one. There are a lot of people, there has been a push for quite some time, particularly within the last 3 to 4 years, of this concept of the new, more compassionate ABA. It's not. It's actually not. What you have is essentially people rewriting the manual on applied behavior analysis to use kinder words, but the techniques employed are still exactly the same. So essentially all they really did was turn their handbook and manual essentially into a PC version of its former self. And then telling us, see, it's kinder and gentler now. No, it isn't. What's needed to be changed is not the wording, it's the very techniques and concept itself. I'm in. But anyways, we'll go back to where we were, and we're going to skip a few real quick, because I know I've read some of these to you all. Alright, now we're starting to get a little bit closer to where we left off the other day. We're going to pull up this one here. This one says, this sounds like a fantastic idea, and I wholeheartedly support it. These devices and techniques and devices are inhumane and shouldn't be authorized for use on any human. Also, any medicine that could have come directly from the 1910s should automatically be frowned upon. I'm just saying. If it's therapy and medicine that the writer of Frankenstein would recognize, it probably should not be in modern use. Just kind of saying. You know? Alright, we're going to read this one here. This one states, I am a disabled person and an educator who often works with students with varying disabilities. I want the FDA to pass a rule banning the use of electric shock devices for behavior modification. Electric shock for behavior mode is inhumane, and the United Nations has stated that electric shock devices are torture. These have no place in any kind of health facility. We do not need to use electric shock to help disabled people. There are many other ways to help disabled people stop hurting themselves. Please pass this ban. Simply put, yes. I mean, just looking at the numbers alone, the math doesn't math when you are looking at the JRC's like excuses that they throw up. Like blatantly on the most uncaring level humanly possible, the math doesn't math. Just point blank. Alright, let's take a look at this one here. This one just says, please, 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 please. Electric shocks are so harmful, get rid of them. Honey, the way that sounds like when I first came across this. Oh, we already went over that one. We're going to scroll on through. Alright, here we are. This is from the ASAN template. I'm getting to the point where I can recognize it now. Here we go. This one says, using shocks against anyone, not just autistic people, is incredibly harmful and cruel. As an autistic person, seeking fellow autistic people subjected to this kind of treatment is scary and horrible. No one should have to go through that, and there are other alternatives not nearly as harmful. This needs to stop. Preach! Preach and go off. Sincerely, preach and go off. Alright, let's grab this one here. This one says, I believe that shock therapy to change behavior is morally reprehensible and does not effectively address the behaviors it attempts to solve. It can't, because fear only acts for so long. But the hardcore factory settings that we came to this world in will always reset themselves. The only way to actually successfully treat the more not so fun sides of the diagnosis is to find out what makes it tick. You want to know how you find out what makes that behavior tick? You figure out what the reasons are for said behavior, but there's no way to know that, you say. Seriously. Seriously? Have you actually tried, or are you just going off on what everybody else has told you? But they're doctors! Okay? You still haven't tried everything. Just saying. Just putting it out there, you know. I wake up and choose violence every single morning, folks. Alright, this one states, I am autistic and it is horrifying to learn that the JRC is using an electric shock device on people like me. It's akin to using a shock collar on a dog. Thank you! Which is horrifying on its own even before the sentience is taken into account. In no way does this help anyone with disabilities. This is a punishment and benefits only the persons holding the device. Thank you! And who even knows what they get out of that, but I have a suspicion that it's probably disgusting. Please pass the rule banning these devices for behavior modification. If you notice, I'm trying to go through the page here. Alright, here we go. And you can see here the template again. Here we go. This one says, I have a sibling with autism who frequently has episodes of shouting, self-injury, and generally violent behavior. The thought of someone using one of these devices on her is beyond sickening to me. Trying to train a human being the way you might an animal is both incredibly dehumanizing and also an ineffective way of addressing the problem. Thank you for calling out the root of the issue. Finally, somebody said it other than me. Call it out. Yes. Yes. Folks, that's what ABA is. You are essentially trying to train human beings as you would a dog to perform to their standards. That is what it is at its heart. At its heart. I mean, literally compare the Pavlov experiments to what they get up to at the JRC sometime. Literally. If you can stomach it, that is. But thank you, Kim. Say it loud, say it again, say it with a megaphone so they can hear it in the back. Go off. All right, we got a few more to go through. This one says, I urge the FDA to ban the use of electric shock devices for behavioral modification. I want it to be illegal for people with disabilities to be given painful shocks. People with disabilities should be protected, and it is unethical to harm or hurt them with these devices. It is so scary to me that these devices are being used to cause pain to people. There are other ways to help people with disabilities learn to manage their behaviors, and inhumane methods like the electric shock devices should never be used. I have a disability and care so much about protecting other people with disabilities. Please ban these devices to protect us. That was what I was commenting on yesterday. There is an innate instinct that has developed in the disability and neurodivergent communities and all the separate communities that come together to form the disability rights communities. Let me tell you, when it comes to protecting one another, it is absolute instinct. Instinct. A good majority of us do eventually get involved in some form of advocacy because we feel so passionately that we don't want others to have to go through the things that we did. So we are going to be the voices that we wish we would have had been there for us. We cover each other. We do a whole lot of mutual campaign raising to help an individual in the community who is suffering due to medical bills. The way we look out for one another, I have never really even seen before, to be perfectly honest. It's actually a beautiful thing, and it's a tragic thing because it has to exist because of the world that we live in. But yeah, it's just the embrace, the amount and level of acceptance The absolute lack of the need to be anyone other than yourself inside those spaces is incredible. That I can tell you. All right, we got a couple more to go through for this video. Let's go ahead and get to them here real quick. All right, here we are. This one states, how is this practice something we haven't left behind decades ago? Thank you. ESDs are cruel and horrific. I am delighted that the FDA is taking steps towards banning the practice of electrocuting people whose behaviors veer outside the typically accepted behavior, even when those behaviors can be self-injurious or aggressive. By the way, typically accepted behavior does include things that can be considered detrimental to your health, neurotypicals. You do not hold the monopoly on so-called normal behavior, nor are you some kind of ideal to aspire to. Have you all seen yourselves lately? I'm just saying. Is all. Cruelty towards those who are suffering only begots more suffering. The only thing I am suffering is the suffering that one endures for being born into a world that's not really meant for them. Now, I'm not saying that in a way that's detrimental to us. I'm saying we are existing in a neurotypical world, surrounded in a world predominantly peopled with neurotypicals who, at the same time, are still convinced there's some kind of epidemic. Go figure. But anyways. All right, folks, we got one more comment here, and we'll go ahead and leave off for this video. All right, here we go. Last comment. All right, this one says, hello, I'm an autistic individual. I want the FDA to pass this proposal to ban electric shock devices for behavior modification. I don't want autistic people like me to get hurt by these devices when there are other, better ways to modify behavior that don't involve such pain. My autistic friend used to bite themselves when they got overstimulated, but they got a chewy stem toy to bite instead, and so they've stopped biting themselves. This is the exact type of things that I'm talking about, and why things like the full functional behavioral assessment is so goddamn important. You find the root cause, you provide some form of intervention, then that behavior either disappears, becomes more acceptable and less dangerous, or just naturally over time lessens itself in some capacity. That has been the thing I've been talking about for years. Years. They didn't need a painful shock to change their behavior. Please pass this proposal to ban electric shock devices for behavior modification. We're going to go ahead and end on that note, folks. I got to check outside real quick. We don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So if you all would be so kind, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. And as always, folks, please don't forget to hit the comments and double check to make sure that you are set up to still receive notifications. We are going to be continuing with the KIPA series as well as the Advanced Directive series, the Down the Rabbit Hole series, and Medicaid series as well. And I just don't want you all to miss anything. I do appreciate your time. And me and the mascot, the cat, who is sitting in front of the window staring directly at the sun, appreciate your time, and as always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. I will see you all a little bit later today. Bye-bye, everyone.